History is fickle. Your people could sweep across the steppes centuries before the Mongols. You could build a great literate empire. We can know so much about you, the life story of who was first and who last. China itself can write official texts about you, yet it's no guarantee after all that work that your language still won't be lost. This is the story of Khitan, a language just now being recovered, and possibly your next chance at full decipherment. It's 907, the final year of the Tang Dynasty. To the north, a band of nomads is on the rise. They've been giving China trouble for years. After shrewd fighting and diplomacy, a leader emerges from among them to become the Great Khan. They expand, ride west, take over what is today Mongolia, and spread across northern China, east to Korea. They make Beijing their southern capital, and leave the earliest tall pagodas that still stand in that city. It may sound like a familiar story, but the actors may not be who you think they are. We're witnessing the rise of what goes down in Chinese history as the Liao dynasty. These are the Khitan people, and their leader, from the Yarud clan, is Abaoji. After crafting a state, Abaoji turns to the next urgent matter, branding. We need writing. He takes this task seriously and in 920 announces a new script inspired by Chinese characters. His younger brother, though, struggles with it. More inspired by the Uyghurs he's met, he invents another script in 925. Both become official, spread around the empire, and dominate for centuries. Writing outlasts empire. The later Jin dynasty recognizes Khitan alongside Jurchen, and the emperor himself goes on record proclaiming, "The new Jurchen script cannot match it." Despite the strong start, the endorsements and the hype, it was not to last. After over 3 centuries, the written language vanishes from the records. Just as we know who started it and when, we may also know the story of its last writer. This man, with a long beard down to his waist, is Chucai from the same Yarud family. This Khitan sage serves the Jin dynasty until they're conquered by the Mongols. He is taken in by Chinggis Khan and advocates for even-handed rule of conquered peoples. You can take over the whole world on horseback, but you can't rule it from horseback. He dies inside the capital of the Mongol Empire in 1244. It's a great story of this vast literate Khitan people for 300 years. There's just one problem, maybe two. Evidence is scant and recalcitrant. In fact, before 1900, Chinese scholars only knew of one example. This is a rubbing made of that stone inscription. It's Old China, so we read top to bottom, right to left. On one side is Khitan, on the other, perfectly readable Chinese characters. This is still the sole bilingual text, and so if we're lucky, a Khitan Rosetta Stone. Slowly throughout the 20th century, more examples were confidently identified, short and full of names and dates, epitaphs, a sarcophagus, seals, this bronze mirror. No, this is not Etruscan. We end up with a catalog of merely precious lines, not books. And then someone at the Kyrgyz Academy of Sciences got a hold of this. One whole book, abstrusely named Nova N-176. It made its way to Leningrad, where it went unidentified for 60 years until it was recognized as Khitan in 2010. It gives the impression of Chinese characters, until you look closer. Not quite right, not right at all. Beneath the surface, it's a totally different system. In 1985, a team made the first guesses as to what that system was. Starting with Chinese words and names transcribed into Khitan, they carefully read those sounds into the rest of the texts and were able to give 25% of them reluctant readings. But immense hurdles prevented further breakthroughs. There really were 2 scripts here, large and small. Apart from some logograms, symbols for whole words, neither script is like Chinese. Worse, between the small and large themselves, there's 0 overlap. To read Khitan fully, you have to crack 2 systems. Research unfolded slowly over the decades. Here's what we learned. The large characters are many in number, several hundred to 1,000. They are written one after another. It seemed like each one must represent a logogram, a whole pronunciation meaning bundle. A state is gur. But it has become clearer and clearer that they stand for syllables. This may write gur, whether alone or inside another word containing that same syllable. By the turn of the 21st century, you could list down the readable symbols on barely a couple pages. Since then, epitaphs discovered this century have given decipherers more symbols and more context to guess at. The Khitan small script is a different story. It's the one you see in that famous bilingual inscription. Characters are written in word blocks. They include a healthy number of logograms, but focus on the way sounds are handled. This block contains a symbol representing an initial consonant g. Then a separate symbol gives us the final rhyme, ur. These two components are reusable pieces in any text to write the sounds ur and g. It's possible that consonants contain an inherent vowel, since they're sometimes used as a whole syllable. This character is used to write just b in bas, but the whole syllable bo in taipo. Altogether, the small script flexibly writes with a range of consonant-vowel and consonant-vowel pairs. Less syllables, more combinable sequences in or across syllables. Which leaves us a sense for the sounds. For example, we know it contrasts PTK with B, D, G. But was this with voicing, pa versus ba, or like Mandarin, aspirated pa versus ba? In addition to an N sound, it has a palatal ng. Oh, and vowels play a big role, harmonizing between words and endings. So Khitan has suffixes for cases like this genitive N, goren, of the state. But that's if the word ends in a consonant. If it's in a vowel, the suffix matches the vowel. Evidence gets complex. Take this word, kagan. It's the genitive of Khan, so of the Khan. Now consider that this glyph is not used to transcribe Chinese K, nor is this one used for Chinese G. Comparing them across texts, it doesn't look like they are variants of K and G. They could represent distinct sounds, maybe back K, K, and fricative R, like this, kagan. So the grammar of this language is appearing slowly from these texts. Noun plurals, cases, past tense verb endings. But we know that over 800 years ago, Khitan was un-Chinese and really un-English enough. It made this ear witness laugh to hear that instead of a bird sits on a tree in the middle of a pond, the Khitans say, water bottom in, tree on, bird sits. Suffixes, and a verb at the end. And if that already reminds you of another language, we'll get to you in a second. Everything is so delicate, needs testing. But can we take what we've learned and apply it back to that enticing book, a book that single-handedly doubles the character count for the large script? So far, only the barest bits emerge from this frustratingly unique cursive handwriting. Pages into the text, it does record a year, 1045, and the name, the Great Middle something Khitan State. If we put it together correctly, and if these symbols sound like we think they do, the tentative words revealed within all of these texts bring up one big mystery to solve. Just what is this language? Well, the old Liao history, the Chinese account of the Khitan Empire, has a vocabulary list attached to it with some 40 basic words. Several of them resemble Mongolian. Add in deciphered words, and many see a language kind of like Mongol. Kind of is important here. Mongolic is a family of languages. Khitan wouldn't fit neatly among the languages as a sibling, but one prominent explanation puts Khitan not under, but alongside Mongolic as a parallel branch on a much larger tree, a Para-Mongolic language. So where did they go? One possible link is Dagur, a Mongolic language, but one where up to a fifth of the words don't come from Mongol, nor from other known surrounding languages. We're in the realm of guesses that are more or less educated. Khitan words are obscure, despite the huge attempts to understand what remains. We're just beginning to unvanish the words of this civilization who set the stage for the rise of great empires in its wake, and for centuries wrote its own history, Gitoni Korin Uskite, in the writing of the Khitan state. Stick around and subscribe for language.